Hello everybody, welcome to a Critical Rocket Town Hall roundup for the month of October. The date would be the 28th, and fuck me, this was a long marathon of a town hall. Essentially, I think it ran over 3 hours long, and I'm going to get the biggest thing out of the way first. If you're waiting for the announcement of a new mech pack, there is no mech pack announced for this town hall, kind of breaking the mold considering the last, I think it's like 3 possibly or 4 that have had a mech pack announcement. This one did not, although there was a lot of questions about MWOmercs.com/rifleman, which was a link that didn't seem to work, but a lot of people are now under the impression that the rifleman's the next mech to have an announcement. Whether that means a mech will pop up on the website sooner or later, I don't know. The Warhammer, although it wasn't officially announced, it did kind of pop up, so maybe the Rifleman do the same. Anyway, jumping into things. Basically, a big chunk of the beginning was talking about the most recent change to the group queue with the tonnage limits. Obviously, currently it sits at a 2-man group having a minimum of 40 and a maximum of 200. Russ basically thinks that this is a positive step for the system, and he sees players, after only a relatively short time, after a week, players are starting to adjust and get used to the new system. Personally, I like the fact that they have removed the class restrictions and just stuck with a flat limit, but obviously it's one of those things that does need tweaking, and it's very divisive. There's a lot of people out there who are against it, or it's still bringing up the age-old problem of the 4-mans or having 12-mans in the queue, and obviously there's people who want 12-mans and people who don't want 12-mans. Basically, Russ, in his experience, has seen a more even spread of things like stomps, close games, wins, losses. Now with this new system, again, this is entirely down to your own experience of what you think. I mean, unless there's like some hard facts being, dug up, I don't think we're ever going to get a clear sort of conclusion to this ongoing issue. The discussion then took a turn onto the 12-man teams and how they were crushing the public queue. Russ is obviously not happy with this situation, but there's not really much he can do. He kind of leaned toward the CW Phase 3 hopefully being a fix for the 12-man stomp groups in public queue. Or at least taking them from the public queue and putting them into the community warfare side of things. Russ was also under the impression that more people were angry with the new system, but now he thinks the majority are sort of shifting to be more okay with this new weight system. He made an odd comment that groups of 6 players and up enjoy it and everyone below hates it, but as some people in the chat were saying, it's like, hey, I'm playing with my friends, of course I'm having the most fun. But yeah, it's a moot point as long as they get the money in the end from those people who are happy with it. A question came up about if the majority of players are in 4-mans, why not make it so the max size for a group queue for a group was 4 and not 12. This did divide the chat in Twitch. Russ said that 5, 6, 7 and 8-mans make about 15% of the queue, and that 12-mans are actually probably the smallest percentage in the group queue. Which means that 4-mans and below are actually the majority of the amount. Russ then explained that more of the matchmaker, that the group size is one factor. Apparently, he had an example of other free-to-play titles that they don't necessarily work. So, like World of Warships has a max group size of 3 for their divisions when you go into a match. He said that for some reason these systems won't work in MWO. I don't know. I'm assuming this is because of the community size in comparison. World of Warships obviously has a much larger number of players actively running it, and MechWarrior maybe has a fraction of that, and that's why the matchmaker has a much tougher time. Russ does say that the matchmaker is having an easier time, that it doesn't have to worry about the weight classes, but now it's taking into account PSR, which is a whole other can of worms for some people, and that the claims that PSR is also just another smokescreen that isn't working. Again, it's down to your own experience, and without the hard data, no one can ever really be 100% fucking sure, can they? I've written that he doesn't want to go down to 4-man only teams for groups because it will fuck the matchmaker. It might not be able to make matches as easily as it does, while it can searching for any size group outside of 11, obviously. Extremely long comment. Yeah, he did end up getting a bit sidetracked. He talked for a long time on some answers, which is what Russ usually ends up doing. I made a note that some people did also start to ask what exactly is he talking about, because I think he did sort of end up going off on a separate tangent for a while, and eventually he got dragged back to it by Phil and Darren. But he is open to a discussion regarding any of the group queue mechanics, and he's confident he can prove to everyone why their ideas won't work. Personally, I'd love to see maybe a test server for some of these ideas, just to see, but I don't know. There was an idea about 4x1 teams. He says that won't work because it would take too long for the matchmaker, and it would make things more complex, having taken into account the tonnage and the weight classes again. He says any community suggestion won't work to make the matchmaker more efficient, and some people got pretty annoyed about that statement. And he went on about this, as I made a note of it actually specifically. He talked about the matchmaker and the group size for 36 minutes. People left, to say the least. People were asking, did Steam release play a part in the changes to Matchmaker? And he says it did, but it's only been a week since the launch of the new matchmaking, group queue thing. So he has to wait. There was another long answer about that. I kind of cut out most of it. But basically, the gist of it is that Steam is playing a part in it at the moment, while they wait to see how this affects things. Then Phil from NGNG asked people to go out into the wilds of the internet, Reddit, Facebook, the forums, that kind of thing, to post their fixes for the matchmakers. Although there wasn't any kind of post it here and we'll maybe try and get Russ to talk about each one specifically. It was just kind of like a go over there and don't bother us kind of thing, which I thought was kind of funny. The discussion then moved on to the public test server and the rebalancing. Apparently there's another test server going up pretty soon. I think it'll be this weekend, he said, if not sooner. Basically there'll be 3 more sessions, I think 1 and then 2 more in November, before they're completely happy with the changes overall. Some of the big changes obviously is the ECM one. If you're not aware, ECM will now have a 90 meter radius instead of 180, and it doesn't make you invisible to targeting. It just makes targeting a lot longer than it currently is, obviously, where if you're in an ECM bubble, LRMs can't lock at all. The other thing was mech signatures, where smaller mechs have a smaller target profile, so they take longer to lock. I guess representing that tabletop idea that because they move so fast they're harder to hit, and larger mechs will have a much quicker and larger target profile, so it'll be easier to lock onto them. Sensor ranges have also been adjusted as well. Russ said he was quite happy with the feedback he got from Test Server 2, and he looks forward to the next round. There was a question of will there ever be a reward for those people who play on the test server. Russ said he would like to, but there were multiple technical challenges across database checking and stuff. It'd be very time intensive and takes away from priority work. But he said it's not off the table. If they can do something, they will do it, basically. Someone asked, can the PTS be up longer with, but without the incentive it kind of dies if it's been up a bit longer, and Russ says that they did have one of the test servers running for a week, but after day 2 it was pretty quiet. He does have the idea, basically it's the idea of why it's up for a short time, but during the core hours for Europe and North America. Sorry, Oceanic region, you kind of get left out of that test. So that wrapped up pretty quickly, although I think that still took close to an hour. Then we went on to Community Warfare Phase 3. A lot of this was reiteration of stuff that he initially announced, I think about 2 or 3 town halls back. Things like he reiterated on the loyalty side of things for factions, where, if you're loyal to Kurita, for instance, you will be able to obviously control a planet, and you can incentivize merc units to defend your world or attack a world by offering up some of your own units coffers to boost the reward for winning a match on that planet. Different reward types, like point accruement. So there's like loyalty points, and then there's like mercenary points. I think it's like honor points and stuff like that. He did mention one of the new things is that new players will be freelancers now, and when they are sat at the sort of home screen, so to speak, there'll be freelance call to arms, and basically if you accept that, you get like a one-off contract with that faction, and then it immediately terminates afterwards. But it's basically for the new player experience for people who want to have a go. The UI was going to be changed as well, so the play now button was going to become quick play, and the faction button was going to become faction play. And you'll also have something called careers and contracts as a screen now, rather than just picking a flag and then picking like a set number of days. That'll all change. There'll be a lot of UI changes coming with Phase 3. The faction screen will now show the population of players within that faction. But yeah, outside of that, there wasn't a lot. The thing that really confused me was that apparently loyalist factions, when they control a planet, they will everyone within the faction will vote on what faction they want to attack. Sorry, so like he gave the example of Kurita could attack Smokejagger, or they could attack Davian. And once that vote's been made, then the algorithm takes over and picks a planet. I thought it wouldn't be better if the players of Kurita then pick the planet they wanted to attack. So you vote for your faction, then you vote for the planet. Because presumably, the factions within the within the Inner Sphere and the clans will want to have a grand strategy of what kind of worlds they want to take and how they want to sort of cut off territory and stuff. But yeah, that might change. Who knows? Russ then talked about Scout mode, which will now be a sort of sub menu that you can pick. Basically, while the match is going on, say there's a world that's being contested, Scout mode, which is the 4-on-4 mode, will involve players on both sides picking that they want to do a scout drop instead of a 12v12 drop, and their objective is to accrue data and information, which will then go into the 12v12 matches. That will allow the defenders or the attackers certain benefits, being things like being able to scan the battlefield, call in long-tom artillery strikes, although I don't think you get to specifically pick where the long-toms go. There'll be an algorithm that will pick where they drop based on the scan data. I get sort of visions of Battlefield 4's like UAV scan thing, and it'll just sort of highlight like red triangles and stuff, but I think it gets more detailed the more information the scouts can bring back. So there's while the planet's being hotly contested, there's a reason for the scout teams to constantly be like back and forth, like tug of war battles, to try and keep the information advantage on their side. For a lot of people were very sort of up for 4v4, and Russ also mentioned that there was the possibility that new modes could be introduced in CW that would involve other players, other team size numbers, or like 8 on 8 and stuff like that. If they can find a way, they'll do it. He talked again about loyalty boosts and rewards. He did mention that he's very seriously considering, or it's already been confirmed, that units that control worlds will generate an income of mech credits on a semi-regular basis, which would be a big plus for those large units out there that own worlds. Someone then asked about the lack of incentive to play CW, which Russ had already kind of answered, so yeah, it was kind of a miscommunication there. Although Russ did go into more information, he says he wants to use elements of the lore and stuff to steer players to a faction that they want to fight or work for. Then another question came up about maybe having increased CBIL rewards for participating in community warfare, and Russ went on a longer answer to a relatively simple question, which was that they're being looked at if necessary, if they need to increase it, but basically the reward for playing one CW match is equal to playing several public matches. So yeah, basically I don't think he wants to do much with it. The question then came up is, will there be any balances for Phase 3 when 12-mans go against pug drop teams? Obviously, this is something that you see nowadays. If you go solo into the CW queue, there's a pretty high chance you'll drop against an organised 12-man, which is what CW is designed for. So, you take the risk when you're going on your own. Apparently, it won't have a matchmaker. There's zero PSR matching or any of the basic system in there for that, because Russ said it would need a massive player base to work with those systems in place. Russ then goes on to actually call out the top units for not fighting each other and accusing them of just avoiding each other to farm the pugs. Again, this causes a bit of a fucking outrage in the Twitch chat. As I put here, this in turn sees the top teams purposely taking contracts with factions away from the others. So he said, like, if there's a top Jade Falcon group, they're not gonna, their opponents aren't gonna pick Steiner. They're gonna pick Smoke Jaguar, so they never really come across each other, and that way they can keep farming the pugs. He doesn't think CW will completely alleviate the issue, but he hopes that the new systems for Phase 3 will solve it a little bit and maybe create a better population spread, along with the incentives for big units to fight each other. He did say that a couple of ideas that have been floated around, and this was interesting, I do hope they do this actually, was they were thinking of having backwater militia worlds, which would be where all of the non-grouped players for CW would play, and there would be specific unit worlds, like I guess the big important worlds would be the ones that the units fight on. That way you would have the big units actually competing against each other, but like players like myself, who I like CW, I just, Tor or ever join, we aren't like a heavy competitive group. We would have our own militia worlds to fight on, so we can go in like a small thing or just drop on our own. Yeah, so I hope they do that. Someone asked, would there be any unit flags for bounty rewards? Russ didn't really have any idea about that. Question came up, who could choose the scout, and Russ mentioned the scout tab as a drop down thing when you pick faction warfare. You can pretty much scout as much as you like, there isn't a limitation, but of course there's the more obvious thing, is if your faction or your team has 100% of the data, you don't need to keep doing scout drops because there's no data to protect. You only need to do it when another team starts obviously accruing the data. Restriction of weight tonnage for scouting. Oh yeah, this came up about whether it was possible to do things like a Steiner Scout Lance of just assault mechs or not. Russ didn't give anything concrete, but basically said he was aiming for it to be lights and mediums. I wouldn't be surprised if they put some tonnage limits there like you already get in the normal CW mode. Plans to explore other game types. Russ said absolutely, but he's not thinking about it right now. Any new modes like Scout will also be under the sub tab. Will there be a map reset at the start of Phase 3? Yes, there will be. Especially, it's important because the scouting mode will require it. Now, things got a little bit iffy here and a little bit heated again when the question about caps for units, as in the number of people, unit member caps. Russ he really perks up at this. He's quite happy. He says he's all for it, although it's not something that's currently in Phase 3. He said it'd be very easy to implement if they wanted to. He loves the idea, and he'd like to have smaller limit to unit numbers, less than somebody mentioned 128 people. He said he would love to see it to be a lot smaller than that, and this would splinter the larger groups to ensure more 12-mans were attacking and defending. However, as soon as he mentioned this, the Twitch turned against him, almost 100%. Everybody, there was a lot of angry people, and Phil pointed out that the smaller units would still be doing the same thing. They would just break into, like, so if there was I just think of a unit like, say, Lords, there would be like Lords 1, Lords 2, Lords 3, Lords 4, Lords 5, and they wouldn't be fighting each other. They would just be still attacking Steiner or whomever, and they wouldn't be fighting each other. And Russ doesn't agree with that at all. In fact, he gets very defensive, and he thinks it would actually pit these smaller groups against each other. But then I thought I had to agree with some of the people in there that basically, why would a group that were once a big one suddenly start fighting each other? When it would be easier to work together to capture planets. and do it that way. Russ then attacks the comp teams, accusing them of being two-faced, because he says on the one hand you guys want like balance and a more competitive nature, and then as soon as he wants to introduce some of this, they're immediately against him. He said one of the ideas is to limit the number of merc companies that would be available to hire for a unit who owns a world. But he seemed pretty frustrated with the responses he got. There was actually a 5-minute break afterwards. I imagine that was just so he could cool down a bit. He specifically requested it, so I think he was quite pissed. So after the break we came back and there was a question about another community warfare event. There was one expected soonish. Apparently this weekend we will see the Halloween event, which would be the one with the grab bags. If you never saw it, basically it was an event where play a match, reach a certain score, then go onto the website, click the link, and you'll be able to basically dip into a goodie bag, and you might get like mech credits or mech bays, cockpit items, C-bills, consumables, general XP, all that kind of stuff. And there was always like a dummy prize that you could get as well. So that's coming back. That was quite popular. He mentioned that there were some fixes for the strike queue for CW matches. So apparently, if you were in a strike team and you like got disconnected for whatever reason, it didn't let you rejoin it. But now they've got that fixed, so that's now working. He did mention that there is actually like a sort of top tier prize you can get out of the goodie bags as well. He said you can get a Timberwolf C champion, but you'll be limited to one per account. So there's not just one out there for someone to get. Like everyone has an equal chance of getting one, and if you get it, it gets added to your account. And then if you roll it again, you just get another prize. So you can't get multiples. But you know, it's kind of cool. Apparently, the next patch that'll be out, it'll be out next week, I think. There will be a new vote system. Again, this caused a bit of divisiveness. It wouldn't surprise me if a chat about this ends up on the forums for the next week. But basically, the new system is going to be if you drop solo in a group, it'll search. And once the matchmaker has found players for your team and players for the other team, apparently you then vote. You get 4 maps randomly selected to choose from that you vote on, and then 2 of the 3 game modes to vote on. And then after that, it then loads the match. Now, the chat fucking hated this. Some people like you're actually limiting options and all the rest of it. I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm not against it. I remember people were asking for the ability to vote a long time ago. So being able to have this isn't a bad thing, and I'm sure they can iterate on it. Honestly, I wouldn't kill it before it's actually arrived. I thought the aggressiveness to this announcement was a little unexpected. I actually thought the voting thing would be quite a popular thing, but it turns out it wasn't. So yeah, Russ didn't catch much of a break on that one. But Russ, while everyone's raging about it, Russ was saying, "Oh, it's really fucking great. Oh, it's brilliant, and you're all gonna love it." And it's like, okay, it's lucky he can't see the chat. There was concerns then about events that require certain modes to be played and certain maps, and Russ said that there won't be another map event because it pretty much sucked, and the game mode ones will be altered to allow for the voting thing anyway in the future, so there's no worry about that. Will there be any iteration on other modes? On the current mode, sorry, since 2 of the 3 are pretty much just deathmatch, and half the time Conquest is just deathmatch with capture points. Russ said yes, but a more interesting answer, he says, they're committed internally to making a new mode because of the matchmaker and its voting system now being up. It allows for new possibilities. And he said that the 4th mode for the public queue will be out around about the same time as Phase 3 for Community Warfare. So that'd be interesting. Maybe it's that much vaunted attack and defend mode. After that, someone asked, would there be improved rewards for capping on assault mode? Russ mentions that Conquest does it, which is kind of a no-brainer. And he says he doesn't know offhand, and he'll ask the team. There was a question about the unseen or next mech pack. Rush mentions that there's no mech pack. Will be announced on this one. and he keeps kind of stum. Although there was definitely a suggestion that there's something coming up. Someone asked about skill trees being revisited. Russ basically reiterated previous answers, nothing new on that, but it's a way off, but they do want to do it. A completely new tree. Will it be possible to dump ammo from destroyed weapons? Russ would like to do it, but it always gets lost in the shuffle. He'll ask the team. Next question was, will there be any RPG elements in Community Warfare Phase 3? Basically, no. PvE single player was then brought up, and Russ, in an eerily familiar, coincidental, sort of link here with Harebrained Schemes and their Battletech project, he wants to, in the future, do an open-ended single-player campaign of you running a merc company and making those decisions and building up the team and stuff like that, and he would really, really like to give players the freedom of being able to pick planets and go wherever they want and make contracts and do missions. It's a cool thing. Would love to see it in the future. It's a long way off, of course. He also said that there would be co-op PvE missions as well. That they won't have any input on the single-player events, but you'll be able to, jump in and play missions with your friends. So it's kind of cool. Obviously, it's a long way off. Don't expect it this year. Probably don't even expect it by the end of, mid next year. Maybe the end of next year. Someone asked, would there be leaderboards for the solo and the group queues? And yes, they will be coming after Community Warfare Phase 3 is online with its leaderboards, and then they'll adapt that system to the solo queue and the group queue. There'll be like monthly leaderboards that will be refreshed every month. There was a question about apparently the art team would apparently been working on a side project of a new mech model, but Russ couldn't give any information on that. Someone asked about the urban mech for C-bills. He said it'll happen, but there's no solid date on this. Someone asked then about unique geometry, such as an old thing like the swappable Atlas heads. He said that decals are being worked on, and that after that it'll be the ability to swap custom geometry on your mechs around for different pieces. So yeah, I wouldn't expect it anytime soon, but it's coming. Someone asked, why don't planets that have unit tags lose the tag when that unit switches to another faction? Again, got lost in the shuffle, wasn't a priority, but it will. He asked everyone on Twitch would they like to see that happen, and they all said yes, unanimously. Question came up about the tournament, the official PGI tourney. Rough, I missed bits of it, but I think basically what he was talking about was there was going to be an NA European and Oceanic tournament that would be official, and the winners of that would then go to like a big grand final in another location, and there would be a big cash prize up for grabs, not like League of Legends big, but money, so that would be something they're going to do in the future. Cool, nice thing, especially for the comp teams. I don't really know if MechWarrior Online could ever really be an esports product, but we'll see. Question came up about heat management and ghost heat, and does Russ think it's working properly? Russ, he says he doesn't like the alpha striking, particularly with energy boats. It's another one of those tetchy subjects for him. He doesn't like the alpha, and he doesn't like low time to kill. He would rather matches last longer and feel more like a fight. Again, this divides the chat, and people link to fixes mentioned in previous years for things like this. And yeah, there's been a lot of discussion in the past about how you could better fix pinpoint accuracy and high alpha, and it's never really been listened to. It's probably one of the more it's probably one of those old wounds between the community and the devs of PGI. So, and I don't think it's ever likely going to be solved. So the next question came up was, when can we expect camo patterns for lore units and new schemes in general? Apparently, first off, Russ mentioned that the paint screen in the Mech Lab will be tweaked a little bit, so when you select owned, it'll hide all of the unowned colours, so you can just see yours, and then it'll revert back when you switch to another thing. And then he said that they're working on retrofitting all the older mechs to use all of the new schemes first, and then they'll start making new skins. He doesn't answer the question about whether there'll be lore-specific ones like Ninth Sword of Light or anything like that. Question came about custom sound packs as microtransactions and DLC, things like new energy weapon sounds, or having unique cockpit computer voices and stuff like that based on factions. Russ, I don't think Russ was like massively on board with the idea. He said that the team was stretched, especially in the audio department. Having Bitching Betty do all of her original lines, he said that like re-recording them would be expensive and wouldn't sound the same anyway because you're re-recording them. It's not the originals, and they don't own the rights to the originals. Question goes about new music tracks, and basically Russ said he'll need to discuss it with the top men in PGI. So another deflection, basically. Updates on the plan. Now, the plan was a micro site within the MechWarrior site, which sort of allowed you to see all the updates that were happening in the future of the project. But Russ says that was Brian Ekman's thing. He had nothing to do with it. He didn't think it lined up with the current direction of the game anyway, and that his forum command share posts were far more informative. So, yeah. No, basically the plan is dead. Don't bother using it for getting your information, guys. Someone asked what's happening with the Timberwolf hero that was mentioned in the previous town hall. Russ said he got a lot of heat from the art team about doing that because of the backlog of the older mechs that still need the retrofit of skins, and now obviously there's the Marauder and the Warhammer and possibly the Rifleman that also need the skins to be done before they're released, but basically don't expect the Timberwolf hero anytime this year. That's what I took from it anyway. He didn't give a date, but I don't know. He did give an update that they have hired 3 new people in the last month, and Russ advertises for more hires, art teams specifically. So if you're an artist out there and you want to work in the wonderful world of gaming, PGI may be your answer. Someone asked about a new game mode being added for public queue, and again, Russ said that that was on hold for a while, but the new voting system now allows him to do this, and he said he's going to talk more about that next town hall. Question about do they know when the Steam release is going to happen? He says he knows, but he won't reveal it, but they are now locked in. And the very, very last question of the night was MechWarrior Online, mercs.com/rifleman. Was there an answer to this? The link seems to suggest a new mech, but Russ isn't saying anything. He mentions then that Steam will have purchasable packs similar to what you can already buy on the store, but these ones will be like a Raven that'll have like an S tag, meaning it's Raven Special, or Steam, I guess you could nickname it. And they come with like skins like Frank and Camo and stuff like that, and some like permanent boosts attached. And then it was wrapped up, and like I said, it was a long ass long ass event, but luckily I managed to condense this down to about 33 minutes. So yeah, it's about 20 to 5 in the morning at the time of recording this. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for everyone who's subscribed. And I'm going to go sleep now. And I'm going to fucking enjoy it. So yeah, have a good one. Critical Rocket. Sleeping off.